Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first council meeting and workshop of 2023. This is our January workshop and public hearing. Our first item of business tonight is a public hearing. Van?
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
Sure. Want me to read it?
No, perfect.
You got it.
Yeah, ordinance 2022-23, an ordinance to authorize the park swap as contemplated by a development agreement for the Port of Port Royal property originally dated February 14th, 2013, as amended on August 9th, 2017, and July 14, 2021, and to further authorize acceptance by deed of the park swap property from Safe Harbor Marinas, Port Royal LLC, and other matters related thereto. The map that you are seeing up on your monitors and the screen are the two properties that are being contemplated. The property in the green is the land that will be conveyed to the town, and obviously what you see in I guess what you call purple pink is will be retained by Safe Harbor. If you originally recall, a portion of this was slated for potential development, but obviously we had extensive discussions relative to trying to obtain the property adjacent to Sands Beach Road, which is what you see in green.
Very good. I'll open it up for any public comment. Hearing none, I will close the public comment. Did we receive any comments? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing section and we will open directly into our workshop section. And the first thing is Regional Housing Trust update. Dixie, thank you so much for doing this.
Hitting the ground running.
Of course. Hi, thank you, Mayor and Council. As your representative, I would just want to make sure that you're kept up to date and in the loop of what has occurred. Not a lot has happened, but we did meet in December as a formal group to solidify our roles and the direction of the committee. We also had a better understanding of Community Works. They are a 15-year, they're a nonprofit organization that's been in the state of South Carolina helping to run and manage funds like the one that we will be doing for more than 14 years. They've had a lot of great success in Greenville, so we're very excited to work for them. In addition to that, the other item that I want to share with you is next week on Wednesday from 5:30 till 7:30, there is a launch and kickoff meeting for the Regional Housing Trust. I know that it may be your normal board meeting, but I wanted to make sure that if you can attend, Community Works and of course all the board would love to have you. Brad Mole, who's the director, will be reaching out to you for a questionnaire just to solidify the needs and wants and direction for housing within the Port Royal realm. And the last thing I have for you is our next official board meeting will be January 11th. And at that time, we'll define the goals, short-term, long-term, low-hanging fruit, and as well as rebrand the Regional Housing Trust with a new name. So I know, as you've seen on the media, a lot of people are calling it everything and anything. So one clear voice and one name. So
Have they chosen that name?
not yet. No, sir. That's all I had. Thank
Very
you.
good. Any
Great
questions?
update.
For keeping us updated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
update.
Thank you for all you're doing with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dix.
Right.
All right, so the next item is the presentation on the tree ordinance. Noah, this one's yours, and this is an open conversation between us and the ordinance that we saw last month. And I will accept comment kind of during this section while we're going through there, but that's after council kind of gets to do their comments. And then I'll accept comment from the audience as well. We've got some people that
If
want-
you don't mind, since this is not necessarily a presentation by me, but more so question and comment and discussion, if I could sit and take notes rather
Absolutely.
than sit at the podium, that'd be great.
Does that work for you? Does that work for you, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as he turns his microphone.
Okay. So, would anybody like to start?
How much hair did he get cut off?
How much hair did he get cut off?
Not enough to measure.
Not enough to require a permit. How's that?
Be good.
So you win.
All right, I'll start if nobody else wants to. So my first item is in the definitions under P, which is the underbrushing section. The last part of that, pre-construction underbrushing must be coordinated with the official. Why is that statement in definitions and not somewhere in
Yep.
the ordinance?
So there were several different definitions that the group that worked on this ordinance requested that there be some type of explanation in the definition as well as the section where it's listed. So there is in pre-development standards where it begins to talk about underbrushing, it says that again.
Yeah.
And so I think that the redundancy was on purpose. I have been back and forth about whether to include anything other than the actual definite. To me, if there's something other than the definition in the definitions section, it's almost like it's hidden.
Yeah,
Where it
I
doesn't
would
belong.
agree with that. I think definitions should remain definitions. That's a policy statement, not a definition. Does anybody have any thoughts or concerns
No,
about
I-
that? Anybody have anything else as we move down? Okay, then I'll go on to the first thing, section 3. Item I, prune of trees. I mean, currently, it says that you have to get a permit to prune limbs of any tree 6-inch or larger. Is that what we really want, or do we just want to be monitoring landmark trees for pruning? And then
So-
should there be a size of the branches that are being pruned, like anything over a 3-inch limb being pruned on a landmark tree must require a permit? That's where I am.
Yeah, so I will say, I think the intent is that the 6-inch diameter is of the trunk of the tree,
Correct?
not the limb. It says prune or limb any tree. So I think that language is just trying to cover any term someone might use to explain what they're doing. I think, from my experience with this, it would make it more difficult to set a size of the limb that they're pruning rather than looking at the pruning that they're doing holistically. And please, Michael, feel free to speak up, or somebody who has
Michael?
actual expertise in that and not just experience.
Well, then I go to two things. First of all, let's
Sure.
go to the 6-inch then. We traditionally, the town has been 8-inch trees and larger.
Right.
Where did the 6-inch come from?
That was directly because we used the Hilton Head Island ordinance as a model. So,
Council have any problem going back to 8-inch, just using what we've traditionally done?
I don't have a problem with it.
8-inch trees, I mean, the 6-inch trees,
Very small.
yeah, I mean, one of the options for plant back is a 4-inch tree. So a sapling is not much smaller than, I mean, you could still potentially
Right.
consider a 6-inch a tree that hasn't even started to thrive yet.
all right, so then I go back to my thoughts on the pruning. Is there a way to do this so that we're just concerned about pruning of landmark style size trees? Again, I go into that same statement I made last month, that is, you know, you're working on a Saturday in your yard and there's a branch hanging down, either touching your house or your shed, or you're hitting you in the head when you're cutting the grass. Well, the way it's written right now, if that tree's over 6, or if we change it to 8-inch, you can't trim that tree with a pair of loppers. You gotta come in and get a permit.
Right.
I don't know that that's what we want.
No, I don't think so.
And you also have to consider,
Thanks, what it needs to be.
you'd also have to consider that means that code enforcement is out there spending time looking for any tree over 8 inches that has even a twig broken off of it.
Right. So.
So that's a lot of
I
manpower
think
as
what we're
well.
hearing from council is, let's preserve the landmark pruning. And at this point now, that's 3 changes we've made. So I'm gonna ask if the public, if any of the people that were involved with this wanna say anything about those 3 changes, or are you okay with us making those small changes? Which is 1, removing that statement from definitions, 2, going to 8-inch, and 3, pruning on landmark
I will
trees.
just say it was previously specimen and landmark trees
I
that
think
required a
your
pruning
rationale is-
permit, so
makes sense.
should we keep
Okay,
specimen and landmark depending, okay.
that's
Yes.
fine.
I think that makes.
Richard, go.
Yes, I would ask you to consider possibly.
Richard, you gotta come up.
You have to
You're
stand
gonna
up.
have to come up.
I'm sorry. I'm getting too old for this show.
Richard Beasley, Willow Point Road in Port Royal. I would ask you to consider on this that, yeah, I agree. I mean, I've got a 7 or 8 inch tree in my front yard, that I have to, it's a willow oak, and as Jerry probably tell you, it can get kind of gnarly. And occasionally it drapes over the sidewalk, and, and I'll cut back a couple of, fingery limbs so it doesn't poke people in the eye as they walk by. But I would ask you to consider that, somebody could, I'm not saying they're nefarious enough to do this, but if they got an 8-inch tree and they want to prune it, and they could literally make a flagpole out of it. And so you might want to take a look at, they can prune it up to a height of, say, 8 feet or something like that without a permit, but not that they can prune anything in that tree without a permit. I think it could be abused. Thank you.
Anything could be abused, I agree, anything could be abused. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on.
Yeah.
It got Mike, yeah. This is gonna be an open conversation, so just,
Michael Murphy, I was on the board, on the review board. I agree. And in my estimation, in my mind, I think that got away from us, got away from me. And doing it with the specimen and the landmark trees, that already precludes the diameter, because they're already mentioned in the ordinance on what diameters
Okay.
and specific trees. So I think that would be a good change.
good, that's a good change, we'll move on with that one. All right, so that answers my 6-inch. Van, you had some sorry, Jesse, come on, sorry, looked away.
Jesse White, the Coastal Conservation League, also helped with the ad hoc committee, and I just kind of had a question, and maybe I'm misremembering, but it goes to your first point about the pre-construction underbrushing and the definitions. My recollection is that we included that language in the definitions because we were just talking through how, like, these in practice, what it looks like and how to capture, to make sure that folks aren't just going without any coordination, that NOAA is aware of any activity that's going on, but maybe not necessarily it requiring a separate permit for just that underbrushing, if that helps clarify at
Yeah,
all.
I struggle, we had our attorney here, I struggle with procedure being in a definition.
And I think I get that,
If you want to
definitely.
define, yeah,
I think part of it also was thinking through if someone just picked up a copy of the ordinance and they wanted to understand what they can and can't do without a permit, that being an activity that we know some people might just do ahead of even any consultation with.
then
What
I
if you
would.
created a definition?
I would offer a
Pre-construction
second definition for undeveloped lot underbrushing. Have an underbrushing definition of what underbrushing is, and then a second definition for undeveloped lot underbrushing. And have that as a definition in there, what then the requirements might be in that way.
Yeah.
That if you're doing that, look at section so-and-so.
And I can see why they want to simplify it for people again, but then again, also, I agree with Joe as well. Also, we don't want to modify the definition.
Right.
To make things simplified for someone else. Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility to know the law before we decide to challenge it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
And Van, you had comments in here, but you've worked with staff and we don't need to go over those, or do we need to talk about your comments?
Just the crux of my comments was, we seem to be very focused on underbrushing and trimming of bushes within drip lines. And I was wondering, was the intent obviously to address specimen and landmark trees, and are we drifting a little bit? Particularly when we consider redevelopment and commercial properties that may not necessarily be very interested in underbrush and maintenance of understory shrubbery, when it's really not functional relative to what they're attempting to do as a primary function of their business or building.
I see the underbrushing piece that we need to be concerned about is undeveloped lots that somebody just comes in and just underbrushes everything out of there and ruins a bunch of good saplings before anybody gets a chance to do any true looking. But developed property, I don't see that underbrushing should be any part of that. If you're clearing and keeping your property clear and that kind of stuff, and I guess We're gonna
How do you
have to ask staff
specify
to
that?
figure out how to separate those two.
But maybe there needs to be then a definition of undeveloped, because if you look at that line
That should be
on Seventh
specified.
Street, where the guy wants to rezone to, Main
Right here.
Street, I mean, that's just a little lot, but is vegetated.
And it's been undeveloped.
Yeah. So we'll just have, maybe that's the other, another definition, is what's classified as undeveloped. There's been no structure on it for some period of time, whatever that period is. Anybody have anything else in that section?
Right along, what we in, section 3?
Yes, we were in 3.
Aye.
So what did we come up with on the underbrushing issue?
I think they're gonna go back and rework that to define the difference
Define the
between
definition.
undeveloped, developed land, underbrushing.
Okay.
Is that the way you understand that, Noah, or is your directions
Yeah,
on that?
I'll kind of split them out so that you can decide what needs to remain.
Okay.
Give it a
Well,
little
I mean, we're talking about underbrushing. Are we talking about trees or are we just talking about,
You know,
Everything.
but we're not disturbing the roots by underbrushing, are we?
Yeah.
Is it disturbing the roots? It's not growing back?
potentially. Some.
Doesn't
That's
it grow
grubbing.
back after you gyro check it? Doesn't it grow back?
That's grubbing. Grubbing is disturbing the roots, when you put a root right down in the ground and rip
Right,
the
but
roots.
we didn't say that. I
No,
didn't say
we're
grow.
talking about underbrushing, which is
Right.
just cutting it down to the ground, and they're gonna grow back.
Right.
But the issue isn't just denuding the property.
So Wendy, you gotta come up, sorry,
Whether-
because we're public
I'm just
now.
trying to making sure that
and
I
we do things
understand. what-
online, you gotta,
Yeah.
I think everybody wants to speak, might wanna move to the front row, since you get up quickly.
This is taken from the Hilton Head ordinance, this is how they do it.
I wanna make I'm gonna make this statement right now before we go on. We appreciate you finding some ordinance to use as a blank, but we're not Hilton Head.
Okay,
We're Port Royal.
one
Let's
reason,
not
there's
call it the
two,
Hilton Head ordinance anymore, and let's look at a Port Royal.
there's
ordinance.
two reasons I bring it up. One reason is that it's been on their books for a while and it's been legally vetted. It's not this brand-new thing that now we're gonna have all the lawsuits and see how it works. They have that. Secondly, it's very specific in a number of ways, everything from drip lines and what you can do underneath them to things like underbrushing. And underbrushing actually could save a developer money because it minimizes the need for supplemental planting. And it also,
I think that's why we're talking about.
Yeah.
Before development, we have
Yeah.
some fine definition, but somebody who has a house somebody moves into a home that somebody didn't maintain side yard, and now they wanna maintain it, they're gonna come in and they're gonna underbrush it, and they're gonna do something different. That should not have to require a permit and plans and arborists to come in and look at that property.
right. But I was
think
just
what we're-
responding to the idea that, yeah, it'll grow back.
No,
But
I
in-
said the roots are intact. When you're gyro checking, the roots are intact.
Well, there's
So grubbing,
saplings,
grubbing's a totally different thing.
Totally different thing.
But if
Right.
the guy's got a house and he's got an overgrown area, as long as he's not taking out the trees that we specified, if he's got some underbrush he wants to clean up, he can do that.
you're talking about a guy's house, like my house on 14th Street,
I'm
if I
just talking
wanted
about in
to.
general.
As
just
opposed to the Bluff property, for example.
Correct.
With
yeah.
the Bluff, if I'm not mistaken, when they first came into the Bluff, they did some gyro tracking, what I call gyro tracking,
Yeah,
underbrushing.
yeah,
They did.
they sure did.
Everybody freaked out, but if you go by there now, you'd never, I mean, it all grew back.
Most
I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying,
Right.
people, you need to understand, it does
Right.
grow back.
It does grow back,
Right.
but there's no need to do it in the first place.
And oftentimes it goes back healthier because you kind of thin it out and get out some of that dead.
Maybe that's
So-
something Michael would, do you want to address the underbrushing?
Well, I'm good with the
Oh,
underbrushing on.
He's good with it, right.
Developed lots is.
Right,
is-
that's what we're talking about.
I think I
Right.
think we talked about that, but the underbrushing on undeveloped lots, when they go through, I mean, underbrushing used to mean bush hogging, and now it means gyro tracking,
Right.
and a gyro track can take out a big old tree.
Right, we don't want to do that,
So-
obviously.
Right.
That's what
So
we're trying,
that's
that's
what
what we
we're
wanna
That's
make
what
sure
we wanna
we're all,
avoid. That's what we're trying to
we're all in
Yeah.
agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking,
I
so,
would-
That's the way it's already, I'm sorry, Kevin, that's the way it's already
Right.
written in here,
I thought that's,
is it's undeveloped.
we're on the same page, Michael.
no, I'm asking, so when I was on 12th Street, there's a little lot right beside it, little, 90 foot wide, little lot, and the guy doesn't live here, and it would grow up to about waist high. I'd call him, he'd send a landscaper in, cut it down. Every time he does that, he needs to,
The way,
Go get it.
what the adjustments that we've just made, no, he will not have
okay,
to get a
but come
permit.
get a permit every
Will
time.
not have to get a permit.
Right.
Knock it off.
Knock it down, knock it
Right.
back down.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm fine with
Section
that.
4. Okay, application for major subdivision. A brief written narrative for the purpose and plans for the tree protection and justification for the purpose of removal and replacement verified by a certified arborist. And so it's 4AI2. We're getting deep into that subsection. 4AI2. Okay, certified arborist is defined. And this is specific to new subdivisions, undeveloped land.
Correct.
Okay, that was more of a clarification for me than anything. Just had highlighted it and wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
Existing development, applications, B. Same section, B. Existing development, application and alteration of trees on developed properties shall include a tree survey and a report from the certified arborist. Explain to me what you mean there, what that really means.
Alterations.
So anything that's done to a tree on a lot that's already developed, the way that I would interpret it in practice would be if they are required to get a tree permit due to the size of the tree, that needs to come along with a tree survey and a report from an arborist, which is very similar to how we do it now. One of the differences there would be there's a cost burden for single-family homeowners if they don't already have a recent tree survey to go get one just to do work on a tree. And to then find an arborist. So I would say that makes sense from a commercial standpoint on a developed lot, maybe not so much for a single family.
That's my comment, the single family. So I'm in Willow Point, which is not completely developed yet. So I come in and I'm gonna build a house on a single one of those lots, and I'm gonna take a couple of trees down. I've gotta go and redo the original tree survey that shows everything. That's the way I read this.
Right.
That
Well,
the original tree survey now has to be updated, and that burden is being put on a single family development
And
lot.
that
So
could be
for
costly.
a building permit where they're requesting tree removals, that is required already anyway.
But for their lot only.
For their lot only, correct?
This kind of reads like it's the entire development tree. That's the piece I'm getting. I just want you to
Okay.
really look at that language,
Gotcha.
because it's an existing development, application or alteration to trees on the developed properties. So that makes it sound like the original tree survey then has to be updated every time somebody's building on that house. And it sounds like the single-family resident is gonna be responsible for doing that. The HOA or us is gonna have to keep a master tree plan that says this is what it looked like in the beginning, and then each house built, this is how many trees came down.
Yeah.
That's too much burdens on you as staff and on the single-family.
Yeah, I'll make it clear that it's individual developed properties.
Good.
And
That
we'll-
was
we'll
my
clean that
concern.
up.
Everybody
That's
good?
fine.
Good?
Yep,
Good?
yep.
Council good? Committee work, understood, not getting overboard here. Tree survey, C. Is that not a definition? Just C, tree survey, C.
It's
That-
4C.
4C, that to me reads as a definition. Should that not just be a definition?
4C, so yeah, I guess the reason that it was included here is because this is the information that we want with an application, and we keep, you're right, we keep invoking tree survey above this paragraph.
So do the highlighted, that means there's a definition of that word, and they go back and read the definition. Am I saying that right, Lawrence? And that's the way you do that? So don't repeat what's already in the definitions, just highlight it that says that this word has a definition, and they look back and read that definition.
Yeah, we can,
Okay? That makes sense? I'm trying to make the C is supposed to be a B, and the B is supposed to be what? We got
I'm
an
not
A,
worried.
we
None of
got a
that
B, we
matters.
got a C.
that doesn't matter at all, Wendy, because it'll be reformatted for the code
Okay.
ordinances.
Van, you had something here on 5B.
Okay, what I have. Yeah, I just have some questions about the rationale behind the, there was one specific section that we seem to be drifting away from tree protection into wildlife species protection. And I was wondering if that was your original intent, was to expand to that.
I mean, the intent of where we came back together is the landmark trees. Absolutely, the specimen and landmark trees to prevent the ability to circumvent what we were trying to do, which was save them. And this stuff got added into here. This is on undeveloped or undeveloped properties, so we understand why you would want to do this. Just take another look at that.
Yep.
I think, again, we're trying to protect specimen and landmark trees. Anybody have anything?
I think Jesse does. She was
Jesse,
quick on
come
that
forward.
one.
How'd you know?
I could tell you were jumping out of your seat there before he was done.
I just wanted to say, one of the things that we, as a group, thought was really forward-thinking about this ordinance was that, yes, protecting landmark and specimens is very important, but smaller trees and more diverse species of trees is also really important. And part of why we're protecting the trees is because of these other benefits that they provide to the greater ecosystem. And so that being there is, I think specifically, it's explaining why there is an emphasis on underbrushing on undeveloped lots, because that provides those important habitats. And I don't think you can dissect those. You can't separate those from the trees themselves, because that's part of what they are, is that they provide those resource benefits. So even if it's not written in the ordinance, it's still a fact.
Right.
But I think having it in the ordinance helps give context and meaning to the requirements that it has.
All right, well, I'll take a closer look at that again. And you take a look, we'll take a look at it, see what we can do. All right. Are you good with the penalty section?
The penalty section?
Yeah, I
You
mean-
mean cutting to the end or the clear cutting portion?
Well,
and-
at 6, we're
6?
we're at 6,
I was gonna say, so there's,
I know you're
okay.
talking about the penalty on
yeah.
B2.
I believe we incorporated this closer to the end of working on this to try and be in line with the clear cutting penalties that the county is hearing currently. I don't know if they passed yet or not. I think that if it was established that somebody was doing forestry activities and claiming that it was a good faith forestry practice, and that was not the case, that the 5-year deferral is appropriate, just because that's pretty egregious. But then the 2-year deferral, let me just make sure that I'm reading that part correctly, because there's a separate, basically any portion of tree removal pursuant to a development application would be a 2-year deferral. So that is in keeping with what we've already adopted in our tree ordinance right now. Really what we've done here is just add the 5-year.
5-year.
If they don't have a forestry management plan, and that's what they claimed they were doing the activities
Okay.
under.
Okay,
So if the developer removes any portion of the trees that would have been protected by the section pursuant to a development application, the application shall be deferred for a period of 2 years after completion of the removal.
so
Any portion of the trees.
If you cut anything before you apply for a site development permit,
It shuts it down.
it shuts it down for 2 years.
So the question that I have, is there an alternative penalty? So this is what I'm thinking in my head, and please understand, we are trying to protect trees, but they've already done it.
Yeah.
Okay, is what this says, and now a permit comes forward. And can we do something different with the mitigation for what they've done to allow an economic development that may be a benefit to the town to happen, but we get a benefit to the rest of our trees? Wendy, allow me the opportunity to finish speaking, so that we get the benefit of those trees somewhere else in the public. I mean, and it could be substantial penalties for that. mean, we're stalling them for 2 years. Financially, there's a downfall to that. If we get, 10 times the caliber inch of the trees that he removed, that he has to plan or wait 2 years. I just want to think about that aspect.
Well, what about the trees?
Excuse me.
It's already too late, remember, this is what we're saying here, is they already did it and we caught them.
I just think.
But I would argue that.
Hold on, let us talk and then we'll get back to public comment, because we got some council members that want to talk.
I think there needs to be some responsibility put on the developer.
Yeah.
That they need to know this, they need to know this
Right.
ordinance, they need to abide by it, and, I mean, it is pretty harsh, but, that's kind of the point.
And I'm fine
Is
with
that-
harsh,
But you're
as-
saying if they've already done it, then is there something they can do?
Well,
I
let's
don't
be,
know, but at that time, you're starting to open the door to
Yeah.
give them wiggle room out. It's like,
Right, I don't
they'll
like
start,
that.
they'll
I
start
don't want
I
waiting.
don't like
wiggle
that.
room.
I don't want them to, these are the rules, you gotta play by them.
Then let's leave
Period.
it as is. I'm good with leaving it as is. I just wanted
These
to
are the
have the
rules.
conversation.
This is, if you wanna come in, if not, they're gonna run right over us, because they already do, because they're already safe.
And the
I
money's
can
no
cut
object
this
to
down
some.
and pay the
How do
fine.
we-
They'll do the cost, they'll do the analysis, and they'll go, well, we just cut it.
Hit 'em
We'll
where it
cut
hurts.
it.
That's not what we want. You're absolutely right. All right.
Right.
So then, how do we handle property transfer?
We probably need to add a definition of clear cutting, I assume, as well.
All right, and how do we handle property transfer? If I have forestry management in place, I clear cut this property according to the forestry management plan, then I sell the property within this time frame, and a new person comes forward with a development on that, how does that get covered?
that's a good question. I don't think we included something for
Because that's my other
that.
concern. As I go in and clear cut
but I
it,
think-
and then I sell it to somebody,
I think
and
if we're going to continue to include this as a deferral and not allow any kind of mitigation instead, it's simple to add
goes with
that
the land.
language in
No,
here.
to include transfer of property
Correct.
that it holds in place, because that's the other key that I wanna make sure. They can't do it, then sell the property, and now somebody else can do that, and it goes to an LLC that the same person's involved
It
with.
stays with the property.
Because that's, it's switched, sold to an LLC that the same person's involved with, and they get to develop it. That doesn't happen, does it? So that's what I wanna talk about. No, I wanted to just talk through that section. I wanted to make sure we get everything on the table. So,
Sure.
did we cover what you were thinking, Richard, there?
Yeah, my concern was, I think it was covered by Kevin, that they're gonna do a cost benefit analysis. They're gonna come in and say, hey, it's worth
Richard,
the
come on up to the
17,000.
microphone so they can
You
hear
have
you.
to think about the public.
You can't hear me, Jerry?
No, it's the
No,
public,
people
it's
at
the
home.
people that's
I'm
on
sorry,
social
I'm sorry,
media,
okay.
they're
yeah,
watching,
yeah.
I'm on
I thought-
Facebook.
Okay, but yeah, they're gonna come in and say, okay, the cost is $500 a tree, or $1,700 a tree, or whatever it is, and believe me, that's chump change for a developer.
Right.
So,
Wanted to make sure we talk
so I think Kevin put it right, that's gotta stay. And just one thing that I'm gonna remind you, and you're going through, a lot of things here, and I appreciate you're doing this and taking a hard look at it, but we don't want to do anything that is going to end up softening what we currently have by making these changes. The reason we're here is not just for, the trophy trees. It's here because we know, we love this town, and we want to save the trees, whether it's a live oak or a willow oak or a cherry tree or whatever. So, please, it's hard, if you soften it up, it's going to be even harder than it is now
Gives them a foot
to
in the
toughen it up. You're better off keeping it tough, and then somebody comes along and says, oh, I can't do anything, I can't do it, I'm not gonna develop it, I'm going away. Well, half the time, they might want them to go away anyway. But just realize it's easier to soften it than it is to toughen it. So you guys are doing the tough job now, and I commend you.
Appreciate that.
I just want to bring up one point. Michael, do trees accidentally get cut down sometimes? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind when you think about that 2-year deferral.
May I bring up one other thing? Excuse me? We had a neighbor who chopped down some live oak trees in our neighborhood, and she said, oh, I didn't know, right? Jerry, I don't know if you were into that, but Linda and the code enforcement officer were. And it turns out, once they got to the magistrate, the recommended fee the fine just about went away. So we might have these fines in there, but we have to realize that there's another party out there that might not enforce them for us.
That's why we need to make sure that the mitigation is in this, not in a ticket.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you can call it a fee instead of a fine, or what you do, but if there's some way to
be a
keep that
fine as
enforced.
long as-
That, I think that's a different topic to address, but Brooke and I just
Should be a
did
fine.
discover today that there is language in the code of ordinances to be sure that any fees that are specified in there that aren't the typical $1,087.50 for the magistrate,
So weak.
they apply and should be assessed by the judge when they're found guilty or whatever it is, so. In addition to the regular fine, so we'll clean that up best we can.
Good.
with that level.
So the table of specimen and landmark trees. Water oaks. Can we remove it from this table? They're just
It's a
dangerous.
hazard.
They're just dangerous and hazardous trees.
I get it. I get it. There's, I mean, Water Oaks need better PR. They have nobody standing behind them. They get the brunt of everything.
You're in my yard,
But
and I regret them.
one of the things that I found out in the field is that laurel oaks and water oaks are interchangeable to some people. And every tree that's not a live oak is a water oak. And so I think putting them on the list gets them a little credibility and gets eyes put on them to see if it is a tree that really needs to come down. One thing I would want to do, and I didn't talk to Noah or anybody about this, I think it should be taken off of the landmark status because these trees get dangerous when they get older. So here we are, we're trying to preserve old trees, and we have the live oak that we can, if we could maintain a live oak,
It only gets stronger.
which is, it's just gonna live forever. You know, if it can just be maintained and reduced, and those trees are great. So, and then the other ones aren't, and there's such a thing as being overly mature, and they should come down when they get older. But I think they should stay on the specimen list.
Or removed from.
And if you just go back, if we go back to we went right over purpose and intent, but
No, we're
what
good,
we-
because we're good with it.
you're good with it, and that's good, because we, as a board, or as a, whatever we were, we wanted
Technical
to
committee.
preserve canopy. We wanted to preserve a canopy status for the town of Port Royal. And in doing that, really the only things you need to do is control understory, remove invasive trees, and just kind of keep everything intact. And keep your eyes on things, and then remove the bad ones. But in the sense of keeping a healthy and a canopy with integrity within the town, taking out an entire species is not a good idea from an arboricultural point of view.
So what you're suggesting.
And it could be, I'm sorry, it could be an educational process for the people, you know, because I see site plans that I review, and every single pine is Xed out on them, because people don't want to have pines on their property when they build a house. But when you talk to them and you explain how, you know, pine trees are a little bit different down here, and they're very deep-rooted, and you just look at them, take out the bad ones, leave the good ones, you know, it's not everybody gets educated, and they have a more diverse piece of property. So thinking of that, transferring it into the town of Port Royal, just keeping that canopy intact is kind of what we went for. So
So are you suggesting that a water oak becomes a specimen tree at 24 inches, but it never becomes a landmark?
correct.
Okay?
That's fine.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Logistically, what does that mean?
water and laurel or just water?
Because once it's 24, it's 24 forever, and then it becomes I mean, I know the penalties are different between specimen and landmark, but how logistically does that work?
It helps in one aspect because you will never have to apply for a waiver to remove it.
Okay.
And that's what I was gonna bring up, is maybe Michael and I take another look at the list of specimen and landmarks and discuss, are any of these that have a landmark status a hindrance to the type of development we want in certain zoning districts like T4, UC, T5 Main Street,
Very
where
good.
we are going to have very dense development, and we want that in certain locations.
Very good.
I don't want that to hinder.
We
that
would
kind of
really
development, so
appreciate that.
we'll discuss that a
Okay.
little bit more.
That would help
Loop
us a
y'all in.
lot.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Just curious, how long does it take a water to get from a 24 to a 40? Just curious.
Michael might tell
Michael.
you.
What? I'm sorry.
Growth rate, is it?
Growth rate of a water road from 24
Oh,
to 40?
they grow pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean.
That's not a real old tree.
Grow pretty quick. Live
Yeah.
oaks do too.
Yeah.
People don't realize it, but they do.
They do, yeah, well,
It's
even
just-
live oaks do,
Yeah.
just when they're maintained and
Right.
then they slow down, then they kind of
Thing I
stop.
learned about live
But-
oaks years ago is 300 years to grow, 300 years to live, 300 years
Yeah.
to die is kind of the statement that I've heard a lot of tree arborists say, that they literally, they're a 1,000-year tree if they're taken care of in that way. And so-
I think what we're seeing, or what the intent should be, some of these oaks that we know they get to a certain size, and then the interior
Right.
just decays.
Right.
Yeah.
And becomes a hazard. That's
Yeah.
what we wanna prevent.
And the other one is the
If
sweet
we
gum
can.
at the end. Please take a good look at the sweet gum. To us that know it as the itchy ball tree, the one that drops the
Yeah, it's a
balls.
good tree.
You trip and fall and twist your ankle. and
Diversity,
all that
right?
kind of stuff.
Diversity.
Diversity.
Diversity, but take a look at that one and see if it makes sense to be a landmark as well in that aspect, that you gotta get a waiver to cut it down.
Well, you're lucky there wasn't a naturalist on this board, because there would be a lot more trees in there.
Okay, very good.
I couldn't get Chris to call in, so y'all are.
All right, so the next one, and this is gonna be controversial, so I'm prepared for that. But, B1,
Bingo. Oh, I'm
thank you,
sorry.
B1, thank you, Jerry. We needed a good laugh. I read through that and I find it extremely restrictive, especially the statements, if you're gonna go pervious paving over in the drip line, but then also say you can't use any mechanical equipment, you can't do that. You need mechanical equipment to put the proper pervious pavements in. And we've heard from arborists that, especially like live oaks, they can take that right up to them and you can build close to them and they're gonna be fine. I find the mechanical equipment statement in that extremely restrictive. And I really need you to talk to some people and say, can this even doable? Or basically we're saying you can't do anything under the drip line with the statement.
There is, and because one of the things that came up when we first started talking about revisiting the tree ordinance was the resiliency of live oaks. We want to protect large live oaks, but we can also build around them and incorporate them into designs, and they'll withstand that. So this is a little bit counter to that, saying let's not go within the drip line, because we can't do anything within the drip line that is healthy for the tree. So I'd be willing to go back. From my standpoint, I want to be able to, and again, to the urban development point,
Right.
I want to be able to tell somebody, you can incorporate this tree, still save the tree, but do a design that gets you the density you need, or whatever it is.
I was gonna say, that's one of the things that I took away from the conversation we had about 12th Street that started
Yeah.
all this. People, we were told that
Yeah.
these trees are very resilient. You could make new plans. There's ways to build around them and save them and be okay. So
And
that's what happened,
Put
so.
something in here, so change the wording in a way that a clear construction plan must be submitted and approved before any mechanical equipment gets used in this area. So that, we have an.
And we'll have an arborist look at it.
Right, review that and understand that, but just to say no mechanical, because if you're gonna do pervious pavers, you gotta tamp them down, or else they're not gonna do anything. If you're gonna do pervious concrete, you gotta build forms and you gotta bring equipment in there to level it, So this was just way too restrictive. I think, I get what we're trying to do, I think we gotta define it. Good?
Yes, sir.
Everybody okay with that? Technical group, good? 3, same area. 3, if preservation of the landmark trees cannot be achieved, wait a minute. Nope, sorry, 2 first. A landmark tree shall not be cut, removed, pushed over, or killed. Is this repetitive? Have we said this already a few times?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the I is above this.
Right.
So-
It's, just look at it, repetitive gets confusing, especially when you just look at it, say, have we already addressed this, or does it need to be there? In that way, that's all. And then, Van, you had a comment on 3.
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, this basically removes all the discretion from staff to review these.
Right.
So anytime a landmark tree is requested to be removed, it would have to be approved by the design review board.
And do we want to put our citizens in that place? That's a
They're only making a recommendation.
no,
No, they
design
make it.
review board is final.
And
I mean, there's,
I don't like that.
That's the conversation, the same thing, Van commented,
well, here's the
They signed
question:
up for it.
do we want
I don't like that.
what would the
that's
other
pushing
option be
off.
for?
Give us a minute,
What would the other option be for a body to review trees other than staff? Because that's where we got stuck before.
Third party
Wasn't-
arborists,
Take it to council instead.
this body,
This body.
if it comes all the way to a landmark
It's
tree,
appealed. They appealed it.
if it comes to a landmark tree and staff has done everything and done what's in here and gotten those, and you're gonna give us a recommendation, the way I read this,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this body. Now, I'm not,
And we'll-
council, you need to think about
It is
this.
appealed, it is appealed to us, right?
It can't, no, DRB is not appealed to us. It goes to court.
No, not, oh.
Yeah.
So-
That's what I'm saying. The way it is right now, it goes to DRB.
And just to
And
make
it's
sure you
fine.
have all the info while you're thinking about it, I would give you a report and a recommendation based on a conceptual site plan, a tree survey, and any design alternatives that they have looked
Correct.
at. If they haven't looked at any, then
And an
we'll discuss that at a
arborist
staff level
would be part of
first.
that report, so we would have everything we need
We can
to
make a decision.
deliberate on that and make a decision.
We're gonna put it on this- I don't think we put that on the DRB.
I don't either. I think it needs to be on this body.
That was my feelings.
That's fine, I'm fine with it. Comments, Wendy?
We,
Do you have a comment about that?
we were elected to do a job. This is part of the
Well, I
job.
think
We're passing the
you
ordinance.
speak to this point, right?
I just personally think it makes it much more political. I think it's much better served by a citizen body that doesn't have to run for reelection, et cetera. And given that the staff would be making the recommendations with an arborist, I don't think that body would be flying blind in making the decision.
There
So,
could start to be that perception
I mean, first of all,
of relationships and.
Yeah,
But it
I
could be
just
neighbor
think,
against
I
neighbor.
think to take the
Yeah.
politics out of it will end up ultimately being better for everybody. That's just, but that's, you know.
I apologize. I was through the mid-2000s DRB wars, where use got mixed up in design, and we ended up in 3 or 4 different mediations because design review board members did not like the use and were evaluating projects based upon the use and not the actual architecture.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. So politics invades itself in all processes.
Everything.
Right, politics is no.
All personal biases and so forth, takes over.
Costs y'all a lot of money.
Back then.
Yes.
And the design review board had the authority to make those decisions, is what you were saying.
Correct.
I mean, yeah,
I don't think they should.
planning commission deals with that all the time. We get focused
Well,
on
let's
use
make a
and not
decision
zoning.
whether they are
And we
not.
have to constantly bring that back in line.
Can a decision, I mean, that does come before us, we make a decision, we say, no, you can't, or we do something, can they, I mean, they still sue
And
us?
I think we need to
Still
investigate.
Sue
this.
anybody.
For our decision, I mean,
They can sue anybody.
Well, that's something I think we need to explore with the lawyer is, I don't know that it'd be proper for y'all to review it.
Okay?
It may need to work itself through, if you choose to keep the DRB option in there, it may have to work itself through whatever, court
But
prescribed
Okay.
process it is now
Then
versus actually going
please,
to y'all.
right, please review that and tell us whether it legally can come to us or not, because, I mean, ultimately, it comes to us. If everybody remembers on 12th Street, we had an ordinance in place, everything followed the ordinance, and ultimately, this room filled and it stood in front of us, and they were looking for us to make the decision, and we had to defend that we couldn't do anything. And I'm saying now that we were asked to solve that problem, we couldn't, because our hands were tied according to what was in place. I'm saying now, do we put something in place that says we solved the problem?
and he's just saying, can we?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I just want to, I want to
can't-
check that
look
question.
into that and then get us
We
back
could
to
put
us on
something
that,
in there, but
because
it
I
might
mean,
not be
that's what
Legal.
the group asked us to do. A
Yeah.
petition was handed to us to say to fix this. solve this?
From the Van, I'm fine with Van looking into it.
Okay, look into it and see
Yeah.
whether that can come to us. Okay. I'm good with that. And Van, you had a comment on next table, tree categories 3?
Yeah, I'm just, I don't think I'm smart enough to figure this out. I'm just hoping that Noah is. That was my comment.
I will say I have the only concern I can figure this out.
Just leave it at that.
Examples, so.
I slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I'm good with this section.
But I will say one concern I still have with this section is that what we do is we say there's a certain number of caliper inches of trees that need to be on each acre of pervious surface area in a development. But the number that we used has not changed from the ordinance that we used to model this. My fear there is that 900 caliper inches is too high and was used in a more suburban environment where we are not trying to accomplish the same thing as that jurisdiction was.
I don't want to live on that lot.
No,
I
I
wanna
don't,
live
yeah,
overall.
right. So I think that this could, let me revisit that number, because
Please.
that could
You think it could
affect the
come down?
walkability
It
of new
could come down
developments.
some.
Okay.
And so forth, so. But otherwise, I can handle that.
And
the math.
honestly, that was my last comment.
Can we go back to
Yeah.
the one before about the DRB?
Uh-huh.
I listened what Wendy had to say, and you know, we pick the DRB just like we pick any other committee, and we trust their judgment. As long as the law is being followed, why would, now that you think about it, why would we put that responsibility on us when we are the ones that appointed that group and gave them that authority to make that decision? So, I mean, I'm good with DRB. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Aren't you
When
on
you-
that? Isn't Richard on?
Yeah,
Richard's on
that.
DRB.
Yeah, we do have
Well, he
DRB.
was on
Yeah,
DRB.
Richard's
Richard,
on,
you still
yeah.
on DRB?
Yes.
Good. You gotta be coming to that term limit,
I think
we
I got a
ignore.
couple of years left, I'm not sure.
which we ignore. don't
Yeah, I know,
define-
if it's convenient.
First tree's coming up.
Or until replaced by council. That's
Yeah,
how I ended up on the.
Let me
planning
just say,
commission for 20
as a
years.
DRB member, we've made a lot of hard decisions, and it doesn't bother me at all to make a hard decision, and I think we've all been very equitable and fair as we've been there. Noah does keep us in line. He'll say,
Okay.
you can't do that or whatever, and he keeps us focused. But I don't think there's anybody on the DRB right now that would balk at making that decision if it was necessary. So, one other point on.
I know that I heard from the DRB when the last time this came up saying, I hope this doesn't, nope, that was the ZBOA. I heard from saying, I hope this doesn't come before us and you guys figure this out. So they didn't want to deal with it. So
Yeah,
I just-
well, different people. Just one other, back to, there's number 3. There is one, what I see as somewhat of a gaping hole in number 3. It talks about pervious and impervious drip lines, and you can't do this, you can't drive machinery around it and what have you. And I don't know if that covers, compactors or anything else. But one thing that's not in there is building a foundation close to a landmark tree, so that you're putting a footer in there, you're cutting utility cables in there so that you're cutting roots, and that's a whole lot more threatening to a live oak than putting some pavers around it that are pervious. And I can speak from experience. I had a 40-foot live oak in my backyard, designed the whole house around that live oak as a centerpiece, custom design, took an initial one and we moved it around. And 3 years later, after Southern tried to save the tree, said we can't do it, it was too damaging the root structure. So it's, that was a $60,000, revision we made to our plans to save a tree that cost us a lot of money. So I think that's,
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
the
yeah.
foundation or other construction near the tree, not just surface construction, but
And I would say a couple things. One, you have an anecdotal experience. I just, we are in the process of reviewing the 12th Street lots around the remaining live oak, and they are doing a raised foundation 8 feet away from the trunk of the tree. So, and then performing maintenance on it at pre, during, and post-construction. So that to me is going to be, once again, the first example of how this will work
Right.
in the town.
yeah,
But
I would just say that there should be at least one sentence in there that not only is a compaction of soil or the perviousness of the soil or whatever, but, and so somebody doesn't go in there and say, okay, as long as I do this and this, I'm fine. No, you also gotta do this. I think I might want to have one line in there that any construction activity is, can't be.
Tree protection. I mean, we need to look at our tree protection.
Yeah, well, we
Reword
still
that.
have, there's absolutely still
If
tree
you're gonna
protection
reword that
zones.
section.
So we'll reword, we're gonna
Sometimes I'm
reword
not
that for it to
eloquent,
make
guys,
sense.
but you know what I'm talking about.
No, we got you, we got you. I think we got
Thank
that.
you.
Just drip lines and tree protections and all, everything that goes with that, because we do a poor job, in my opinion, of on sites with tree protection.
Kevin, did you have something? Were you trying to say something?
No, I was just going through the.
Okay.
notes that-
All right, no, it's good, Mervyn. We need to say what our opinions are. So that was it. That was my last comment. I think we got some homework to do and bring it back to us.
Sure. The one other thing I'd like your input on.
Sure.
I chose, if you go to, I think, the very last page, so the way that this is, pages, the tree mitigation fee section is section 12.
12.
This is, again and again, stated that it's a last resort measure, where you cannot meet the requirements to retain a specimen or landmark tree, and you also cannot meet the supplemental and replacement planting requirements if you do remove a tree. I chose these dollar values per inch to make it substantial, but not totally arbitrary and so burdensome that it's ridiculous. So I just wanted to give you an example. The 43-inch live oak that was removed on 12th Street was $100 per inch, so $4,300 for that single tree to be removed. That would multiply that by 5, because it's now $500 per caliper inch for that size tree. If you cannot figure out a way to supplement or replace the tree that you've removed, that $4,300 would be more in the ballpark of $20,000 to $21,000, I think. So I just wanted to give you that one example, and if you had any input on, I think that seems reasonable,
I know,
but
that's what we talked about,
strong.
being substantial to
Yeah.
people, let people know that design alternatives must be considered. I'm good with the number. I was good with it when I
Cool.
read it and understood it.
good.
I'm good. Council, everybody?
Yeah, I was fine with it.
Okay.
Get the old housing market, yeah.
Well, like I said-
I'm good with it.
The only other comment I have is, and you said that you were gonna look back at zones, different zones being treated different ways.
I'm not gonna put anything about different zoning districts in here, but I will look at if any of the requirements for landmark trees and how difficult it is to remove them or build around them is burdensome for the higher density zoning districts where we
I
do
guess
want.
The only reason I bring that up is just, looking at, I think there is a difference in the old village as there is to down Rebo Road where we're trying to attract, and we've instructed a redevelopment committee to redevelop and bring in businesses, and so just those areas are different, and
Yeah.
just having them not treated differently, I think could be problematic. Just because, like I said, we've got a redevelopment committee that we've tasked this whole year, and they get together and they're trying to come up with ways to encourage businesses to come down the Rebo corridor and bring in jobs and services and all these things. And, if somebody comes in and we've done stuff that makes it, like I said, just making sure that those are.
Yeah, I get where you're going.
Considered.
I get where you're going. I think that the majority of the zoning districts along the Rebo Road redevelopment area are the type of, that's the zoning that I'm worried about.
Okay.
So,
That's,
yeah,
we gotta
that,
take
that,
another
like,
look
the
at
downtown area
Yeah, I mean,
along Paris is similar zoning to the entire stretch of Rebo Road.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to direct development to those areas.
Take a look at that. see
But
if
I'll
there's-
look again
Yeah,
and we'll
that's what
shore
we're
it up
talking
before you see this again.
I wouldn't have a problem with the landmark tree increasing that from 500 up a little bit. I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, that would really put some teeth in
We're
it.
just talking about exactly, because $25,000 is nothing to some developers.
You make it, get their attention, get somebody's attention. That's what we
Put some
want to
teeth in
do.
it, put some bite into it.
Would that would also apply to a single-family lot.
But that's the issue. That's
20
the-
grand on them. We do want people to move here.
All right, we just gotta find that balance.
I
because
have,
we-
got enough,
I
you got
ultimately
what you
have
got.
one other concern, and at some point, I'm gonna ask Jesse this question, and maybe I should just ask Jesse this question publicly. Come up, Jesse. You know, the original ordinance that's in place with the town of Port Royal was done as a group, and the city of Beaufort did it, and the town, and the county did it, and we did it. We're doing this. Are you pitching this to the other municipalities, so we're not pushing all development back to the city of Beaufort?
I intend to be, yes.
Tend to be.
But you have.
The city of Beaufort has a new city manager and a new planning director,
You
so
know,
it's,
you know, it reminds me, you know, of the bag ordinance and some other things where we all did it together, so we
Right.
weren't pushing people in different directions. We, as this council, committed to do something because we had an incident, but I'm also concerned that this is gonna move any commercial development, economic development, right back to the city of Beaufort now, because what it's gonna cost to build on Reebok Road on Burger King to,
Yeah.
bridge to Burger King versus Burger King to Boundary.
I think that the city of Beaufort is very well primed to
Okay.
revisit their ordinance as well, and they're gonna be going over text amendments to their code. So I think it's a good time. The comprehensive plan encourages it, so we will absolutely be saying, follow Port Royal's lead, city of Beaufort and others.
Maybe that's a joint meeting
Something else
conversation,
to
Ben?
say.
That's coming up.
Maybe that's a
Couple
joint
agenda
meeting conversation?
Can I just make one more point about the redevelopment and infill development on Rebo? Brooke just reminded me, the redevelopment commission is looking at options for an overlay district for that corridor.
And
So
that may be the best
that
way
could be a
forward.
way to
And
make
you
sure
could-
that we're not
No, no, no.
decentivizing folks who are trying to
So
develop
there's
along the corridor.
the possibility.
Richard,
if
come
there's
up
an
so
overlay
people can
zone-
hear you online, please.
So if there's a possibility if there is an overlay zone, if we vote on that,
We-
for that development, that can have different
Correct.
parameters with
Same
it.
as
when it
the
comes-
old village has an
Okay.
overlay that's different, yeah.
Well, then I think that's that's a great way to handle
Absolutely,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
it was a conversation.
Yeah, let me just say that I don't, it doesn't bother me for Port Royal to be a leader for a change instead of a follower. I think that's a good thing. I think we get some good press out of that, guys. Hey, look what Port Royal's doing. And if push comes to shove, as I said earlier, that, you know, all of a sudden we see that things aren't working right, we can always massage it and we can go backwards a little bit. But it's going to be awfully hard for us to put in an ordinance and then Beaufort comes down the line a year later and, you know, and does one that's stronger than us or whatever, and then, you know, it just doesn't look good. So-
Yeah, I'm not in any way
so,
saying we're
yeah,
not gonna be the
yeah,
leader right now. I just
but-
wanna make sure we're pitching it.
Yeah, that's fine, but just, you know, and DRB is gonna hold the line as far as the removal of trees go, but they're also in the form-based code. For commercial development, typically, there are tree requirements in there, are there not, to
Correct,
to
yeah, so
plant
it would
some
be
trees?
it would be the plant back and supplemental plantings then, if this is
Yeah,
adopted in this,
right.
as well as any kind of internal
Yeah.
street tree requirements, private frontage landscaping requirements and so forth.
Right, right. And there are plenty of fast-growing trees out there. One that's not on our list is I planted a willow oak, which is a natural tree for this area, but for whatever reason, and that thing is growing 2 to 3 feet a year right now, and it's a beautiful tree. And they're natural in the area. Jerry, I'm sure you see them in some developments, but, you know, there are trees out there that do come back and they're long-lived. You don't have to wait for a live oak always, so.
Very good.
For my lifetime.
And we've got the balancing act is because we restrict the height of buildings, it affects the way we go this way. Oops, excuse me. There's definitely a balancing act to to accomplish that. Oh, you can't go but this high, okay, then that means we gotta go this way. Well, you can't do that because you can't do that. I mean, we gotta find that happy medium, if you will.
I agree.
It's tough.
Kevin, you have something else?
I was just gonna say, I think as we're wrapping up, just wanted to say thank you to everybody for
Oh, yeah.
working on this. And, I think it's a really good example when you have like engaged citizens, which I think that's up here on our thing, improve citizen engagement. Engaged citizens, certain groups getting together and then cooperating and listening together, working together. I think it is. I think Port Royal is kind of setting an example that's something to be proud of, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone that, I know Noah and Jesse and Michael and
The
everyone.
whole team. They worked hard to get it done.
Wendy.
Yeah, you know, at least we've got to start and, you know, we can move forward.
And
And
it's now the Port Royal.
like you said, Port Royal could be number one with this and the rest could follow. And it sets a good example. Whether they follow us or not, we know in our hearts we've done the right thing, so it doesn't matter.
And I feel better knowing about the.
Well, and they followed you
Building that
guys
we
when y'all were
haven't
the
built
leaders
it.
back in the 90s and actually adopt form-based code. So we have been leading a little
Yeah,
bit.
that's true, that's true.
And I think
A
we
little insulting, but that's okay.
But no, I think we were actually
I
the
forgot
first,
about it.
we
We
were
did do
actually the
that.
first that did the plastic
Bag.
bag.
Of course.
We were the first for the first reading. We weren't the first to fully adopt it because of the way the schedule ended up.
And I think we're one of the actually only communities that regulates tree pruning on single-family
Correct.
lots
And
right
we
now.
do
We're a leader in
regulate
that.
tree pruning, yes. So there's a bunch of firsts, and I'm not afraid of being first.
If we
I just
had-
want to make sure the advocates are pitching,
If we had a journalist in the room that writes a paper,
which we don't have a journalist in the room.
But they may be
a
watching.
columnist, I apologize.
All right, let's move on to the next item, council briefing ban.
All right, real quick, we'll start Reimagine Repo. Nothing really to update from last month. I just want to keep this in the rotation. NOAA is monitoring those efforts. Obviously, the work that we put together with the tool study as well as the corridor study through the Redevelopment Commission will be kept in mind as we move that forward. Redevelopment Commission, I did include the minutes from their last meeting. Obviously, they're very active. I just want to read through some of the motions that were made. A motion was made to get with two local companies, SK and Alpha Graphics, to gather info based upon feedback from a question to be asked via the newsletter and probably other social media. You've probably seen the question, what comes to mind when you think of Port Royal? I look forward to all of those wonderful answers we're going to receive. I'm sure some will be rather interesting.
How's it going so far? Do we know, is it getting,
That's
I
Fairly
a lot of
positive,
good
so
ones, yeah.
looking pretty good.
I think it's been
mean,
great.
is it like, is it dozens or hundreds or
Oh, it's thousands now.
thousands?
Thousands.
Great.
But based upon the answers to those questions, we've asked those two companies to come up with a concept plan or at least try to pitch some naming options potentially for the corridor, other than some of the ones that we came up with during the group.
Sorry.
We decided to defer to the professionals when it comes to that. Second motion,
Mine
which
was just
also
a
passed,
description.
is to encourage an engineered plan for Beaufort Jasper to address corridor concerns for water and sewer. Request engineering describing existing sewer facilities along the corridor to address redevelopment. I think that's pretty integral to identifying where we may have some shortfalls, where we can do some additional infrastructure work to tee up some of those properties for future development. Number three, motion to encourage the delay of the Edinburgh signal until construction of the Spine Road and the port redevelopment has been completed. This was an item that was discussed in depth. Their concerns were construction pushing through some of the residential areas, particularly Edinburgh, versus using the Spine Road or coming up Paris Avenue. So they're hoping to, in the timing, that would potentially address that. Now, that may be out of their hands. It's a request. Obviously, if DOT gets something on either side of one of those intersections, the traffic impact analysis could dictate that a signal would need to be installed. So, but we can do things like limit truck through traffic if necessary. Four, a motion to request a budget be established to improve cosmetic improvements along the corridor, including facades, trees, signage, landscaping, and other similar activities. We did this previously with the Port Royal Pride program. We would be looking to kind of reestablish that. And we saw some of that in the corridors study where they had looked at some improved facades. And I think they've reached out to some of those owners already. And then additionally, they are asking council to consider an overlay for the corridor that would expedite the review process for projects to address issues such as zoning, height, parking concerns, and density. So we'll be putting something together then for them to
I think we're very open to that.
All right. Accommodation Tax Committee, as I mentioned previously, we will need to stand that up in this fiscal year. So we'll be putting out an ad in the newsletter and other places to recruit potential members, hopefully get that set up by February or March. Because we've crossed a certain financial threshold, in terms of collections, we are obligated to have an accommodation tax advisory committee. Tree protection ordinance, we obviously discussed. I've got a redraft of that easement document with Beaufort County for the Sands Beach boat landing. It did not include initially the ability for the town to close it down when it needs to, 4th of July and other events. TAB has added that back into the easement document, and we have forwarded back to the county for them to consider. Obviously, that is extremely important to us, so I made sure that that's included in the document. So, other than that, if you read through the document, it does address the maintenance issues that they've agreed to undertake as part of us taking ownership. All right. Spanish Moss Trail, I think we're kind of in a holding pattern here a little bit. I think we're waiting for final DOT approval.
So my understanding is the second round of comments has come through.
Yeah.
We're resubmitting, we can meet the comments, and once that document comes in, we should get the permit in hands rather quickly.
Okay.
We have a gentleman who is pushing that pretty hard this week from what I heard.
All right. Safe Harbor, we'll cover separately. Not much to discuss right now, so leave it at that. There may be some more things that we'll discuss at the meeting on the 11th. All right. Tree work, we always know it's that very interesting time when Dominion comes back into town to address power delivery services and tree trimming. I did include in your folders a map of the areas where they are going to be working. I think we're anticipating that work around January 10th, 11th to begin. I also gave you all kind of a rundown of what, how will they be trimming. I'm sure it's going to stir some folks up. I absolutely understand that completely. And we'll be working with Dominion in those unique situations where we need
And
to.
I think I saw something posted. Sean, did we post something on our Facebook page today? I thought I saw a map posted today.
City of Beaufort's.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and that work is there, we're getting ready to start ours.
They were on Reboat Road. They had one lane closed over by,
That was poles that
Okay.
I put in. All right. Shrimp dock, we are in the process of relocating the 2 remaining boats.
Yes.
We did have an understanding that as long as they are in the custodial waters of South Carolina, they can be anywhere. So we are going to actually trailer out the sailboat, and we are going to relocate the shrimp boat after we get all of the fuel and everything off of it. It's gonna cost, it's gonna be significant. We'll be able to moor that shrimp boat off while we can then begin the process of demolition and replacement of the shrimp dock. All right?
we're gonna moor it and keep it afloat somehow.
Yes, absolutely. Not anywhere near there,
Okay.
in the custodial waters of South Carolina.
Solar panel pumps, something. Somebody's working on a plan.
We've got a plan. We have a plan. We're working on it.
I wanna see the toe, the hole.
We anticipated this being dealt with sooner than later through the courts, but there has been some delays, so we need to keep moving because of the dollars that we got designated. So we need to get this project moving. CDBG, Royal Palms, slowed down a little bit with Christmas. We're trying to address one issue with the preserve apartments right now, which I think we're getting resolved. I reached out to Beaufort Jasper today, and there was some question about the height of the line. We're making sure that it satisfies Beaufort Jasper. We'll get that squared away. So it's moving along. Paris Avenue, Atlas is once again out there surveying. I've asked Michael, about the extent of Atlas's surveying. I think they're out there every single day. So we're hoping, but we did approve phases 2 and 3, so that's probably why you're seeing them kind of gathering all of that data. But we should be getting that information based upon the surveys from Tiller on the conceptual drawings. Federal funds and grants, I don't have any updates on any of the things we've submitted. I'm hoping to get something back from those folks soon. In your packets, you do have the updated capital projects folder. I know we discussed a little bit of we have a pre-con meeting tomorrow, I believe, with JOCO to start construction on the sidewalks, and we're finalizing the RFP for street resurfacing and hopefully getting that on the street. The mayor was pretty emphatic. We want to make sure we get in springtime so asphalt can actually be installed. Short-term rentals, We sent something out in the renewals, letting folks know that you needed to pay the town versus through some of the portals. They have the option of, even if it does pay the portal, that money being sent back and being taken care of here. There is some legislation that was passed that we've discussed that will allow the state to kind of gather the information that we needed so we can make proper reconciliations against our collections. And we do need to request that, but that's coming up. Wanted to include this, the mention of the town birthday party. I know it's the 150th, so we have a couple of years, but I just want to keep mentioning that so it stays in mind just in case. I've already mentioned Dominion tree trimming. There's one other thing I did want to mention is that obviously Beaufort Jasper is no longer collecting garbage fees. So we worked out an agreement with WastePro that they will do direct billing. We did send out, and will continue to send out in the water bills notification to folks that will be getting bills from WastePro versus being included in your Beaufort Jasper bill. They had to do that. They did. I guess they made some sort of financial software change, and we're just not going to be able to do that. City of Beaufort is also in the same boat as us.
Right. And it's not Waste Pro standard fees, it's a negotiated contract fee for the town of Port Royal
Correct.
residents.
Yes.
That would be interesting.
New bill.
No, they are putting it on the tax bill as a separate item. So,
Okay, thank you, Van, for that. Questions about any council briefing
Yeah, I have a
items?
question.
Go.
It's not specific to, that, but since Van brought up sidewalks, and I know that the project that we're talking about are streets and roads that's owned by us. But what's the possibility or likelihood, I know we've talked about this some time ago, connecting Pinckney to Richmond Avenue. I see a lot of pedestrian traffic walking on that stretch. And then that's number one. And then secondly, a crosswalk at Richmond. Because a lot of people from those developments are going across to Dollar General or going to Parker's. And I know if they go to Parker's, they can go all the way down to the light. That's controlled. But, you know, a lot of folks are coming across the Dollar General. And even though it's not a controlled area, I've seen areas where they still have warning pedestrian crossing on ahead or so forth.
I don't think you'll ever see a pedestrian crossing in Richmond because of the curve.
You're talking about Richmond across Rebo?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about? That's like Casablanca.
But
I
I mean,
remember how
but I
hard
mean,
we
people-
beat our head against the wall
but
at
people-
Casablanca.
People are dodging it every day.
I know.
I
But-
appreciate
but-
that.
But at least if a crosswalk was there, it gives you some type of advance warning that pedestrians are ahead. Yeah, you see it for duck crossing.
Not on the state
So
road.
why can't we, not we DOT take a proactive approach and say, okay, folks, you know, deer's crossing here and so forth on curves. Then you have an area that is heavily populated with pedestrian crossing and dodging traffic every
If you
day.
recall, when we tried to put at our own expense and our own engineering costs, a crosswalk on Waddell for children, they shot us down. So
But I just wanted,
I'm just
I
giving
wanted
you a
to put it out,
reality
I just
that
wanted to
they're
put
not
it out
We'll
there
certainly ask,
on my observation, and then also particularly, the connectivity of Pinckney and Richmond.
We can
We
address
have,
that right now.
we have a project in conceptual stages, on the corner of Richmond and Rebo, which encompasses that whole stretch from Richmond to Pinckney. So they will be required to install a sidewalk where that cow path currently is. When I'm out, that's what I'm looking for, is where are the dirt paths, because that's where the people walk. And so that was always on the radar, as far back as when I was working for the county and doing the bike and pedestrian plan and living in town. So we're working on that. It should, if that project is successful, then that will be mandated as part of that project.
Yeah, but across Rebo, we certainly will ask, but I just recently talked to them about another one, and there's no way you're getting a mid-block.
And I understand that also, but it's just unfortunate, and you have to wait for a tragedy to happen before they decide to do something. And all we're doing is warning the motorists.
I agree.
So.
Real quick.
What we gotta do is slow the traffic down on Rebo Road, get more stops, we have more traffic lights put in, that force the cars to slow down.
That's why we're reimagining.
That's why we're reimagining Rebo Road, that's what the tool study was about, that's everything that's going on is all about in that way, to turn Rebo Road into a pedestrian-friendly road.
Yes.
And we'll make it happen, but it's not getting across.
I'm just gonna ask, what, Van, just explain to me again with the waste pickup, like how that's gonna happen?
You'll get a bill
for waste management.
You just get a
So
separate,
You'll see a separate bill
okay.
for the service. I don't know if they're gonna do it quarterly, if they're gonna
I
do
was
it
gonna say,
monthly.
it's gonna be a monthly bill, or?
$3 a month.
It's gonna start February first.
Yeah.
Well, let's verify whether it's quarterly or monthly, and everybody should see the utility water authority bill go down by that same amount.
Yes.
Okay, and, with that and also and maybe I just missed it, but with the tree trimming, can we push something out about that through social media avenues?
Yeah, it was in the newsletter this week.
Okay. Maybe some posts,
Well,
yeah,
I
maybe I
It's
missed
time
it.
to
but-
stand.
Thought I saw it.
Sitting too long.
Yeah, please.
Hey, Tricia Fidrich, 12th Street. So thank you, Van, for bringing that up, because that's why I wanted to talk to council about trees. It's very germane to the ordinance. We did receive an email about the tree trimming that will be done by Lewis Tree Service for Dominion Energy, and it said that it would be starting soon. And so, you know, we have seen what some tree trimming has done. So you may also recall that about a week ago, there was something in the Island Packet, the Beaufort Gazette, about the city of Beaufort, and that they are planning to meet with Dominion Energy to discuss the tree pruning, okay, on January 10th, I believe. And so I would just urge you all to be proactive in that as well, to maybe meet with them. City of Beaufort also stated in this news article that they're going to have an arborist on hand to help guide some of this pruning. And so that would be another request that I might ask of you, is that you meet, you know, that there's some type of really strong communication. So I don't know, I mean, Dominion Energy sent that email out a couple days ago, and we were alerted about this tree cutting. Thanks for bringing it up, Van, and it would be very helpful if there was some increased communication, so that with all the work everyone's done with the tree ordinance, we don't now want to, walk down the street and see the trees butchered because of the power lines. I know they have to do some, I know that, but some careful pruning would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, Richard.
All right.
You know how this works? Come up front, the microphone. There you go.
Guys, go on up back.
I think you can be in the Guinness World Book of Records.
Couple of years of staying home, pent up. And I know you all have discussed this, and Van in particular probably, but I did notice in one of the papers today that Beaufort is on the trash removal, is putting it into the Beaufort County tax bill.
I read that.
And I would, if there's any way of taking a look at doing something like that, because people will pay their water bill, they're not gonna ignore it. People are gonna pay their tax bill, and pretty much they're not gonna ignore it. But if you get a bill from the Waste Authority, and they don't have that clout that Beaufort Jasper or the county has, and you just throw it in the trash or whatever. I think we're asking for problems if we don't put it with an entity that has the clout to collect it, rather than just being another bill that comes in and, I'm not going to pay that this month. It could create problems.
Just so you know, when a delinquent tax bill goes delinquent, the delinquent tax office only collects the delinquent taxes. They don't collect the delinquent fees.
Right.
Just keep that in mind. I know that from personal experience.
Right, and we looked at that really hard, and
Yeah.
if it's on your tax bill and you choose not to pay it, they don't go after that.
I would counter that if it's on the tax bill, you gotta pay it. You're not gonna avoid it.
I've worked in that department for 2 years, and I promise you, if you don't pay your taxes, you don't pay that bill either.
It's like, we gotta make a change, we made a change. If it doesn't work, we'll make another change.
Food for thought.
Thank you, Richard, for that. Important dates. Who's ever gonna read them all?
Well, we're going to council discussion.
Oh, sorry, council discussion. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Legislative action day, we need to move the February council meeting one day to Thursday.
Right.
We do this every year. Why we don't actually move that meeting in the calendar, we'll figure that out next year. Make sure that we don't forget that they have that. So we need a motion to move our February council meeting to Thursday. All of us are gonna be, or most of us are gonna be at that meeting.
Okay, I move that we,
Are you going to do it next week?
Next
Oh,
week.
we can't.
That'll be next
He's
week.
talking about.
Right, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But no, we have to practice it.
We're gonna practice.
Yeah, go ahead. Give us the motion. That's
Here's
good.
the motion. So everybody's good with moving the council meeting?
Yeah,
to
we've
putting
done
that
it
on the
every
agenda
year.
next week?
We've done it
right?
every year.
Okay. Then the other, Brooke, are you gonna reach out on the retreat? Or are we gonna talk about it here? What was,
Right now, we're looking at, in the past, we've had our retreat on Saturday, typically at the end of February. Right now, we're looking at doing a Friday, Saturday, so that way we're not pushing so much just in one day. We're looking at the dates of February 24th and 25th, so if council can give me feedback if those dates would work for you. then we
just
can get
reach
that
out to
scheduled.
Brooke and let her know. Saturday probably will not be a full day. Friday will be a good day. It just, I
Okay
know
with me.
some of, us that have full-time jobs, let's make sure we can make that Friday.
Okay with you.
And then we can go from there in that aspect. Just let Brooke know so that we can start putting it together.
I'll send an email out tomorrow too.
Do that, please.
Thank you.
Now we're good?
Yeah. Unless there's a couple of agenda items, y'all discussed trees. We had the public hearing on the property swap. There is a resolution you'll be considering next week for the Clementa C. Pinckney Hate Crime Act. Is a resolution endorsing that. Obviously, there's hadn't gotten a whole lot of traction at the South Carolina Assembly, and we're hoping that a bunch of municipalities getting together and endorsing it will maybe spur them on. And then the other item under council action is approval of a gym equipment for Naval Heritage Park. You had the presentation last month on the two submittals. You had the recommendation. I will put in your folders, I think you would ask for how it would fit, what would the overlay be? The pad itself is 25 by 22. I've created an image. It's minuscule in terms of its impact on the Naval Heritage Park. And I'll put that in your folder as I created that today.
Great, thank you.
That's all I got.
Okay.
The municipal hometown legislation action.
That's all, that's what we did before we move in the meeting.
Yeah, but does she not need to get a head count for,
Oh, or she's
Kevin,
doing
have
that.
you told her you've done it?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're all good then?
All right.
I just know she said she was gonna ask it.
Important dates.
Yes, Thursday, January 5th at 5:30 PM is the Design Review Board. Tuesday, the 10th at 6:30 is Parks and Recreation Commission. Wednesday, 11th is the regular Town Council meeting. Tuesday, January 17th is the Redevelopment Commission at 4:30. Also on the 17th at 6 PM is the City of Beaufort Town Port Royal Joint meeting.
That's what I put on mine.
Then we need a
All right,
motion to go
we
into
have to
executive
go
session.
into an executive session, so before I do that, is there anybody that has any other comments? Because you probably won't hang around until after our executive session.
I just want to thank you for reconsidering the tree ordinance. We all really appreciate it.
Come get it now.
Thank you, Wendy, for all your
No,
help.
thanks for your work on it.
Richard, you got one more opportunity at the mic, come on.
Ditto, Wendy. You know, but thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you guys.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
ladies, really biting into this thing. It's something that if you go down Baynard Road and Savannah Highway, since I've lived in the area about 8 years now, we've had about 5 clear-cut developments going in down there, and that's got to stop. So, thank you very much.
I need a
Thank
motion,
you.
we need a motion to go into executive session
This is my business meeting.
Motion to go into executive session.
for legal advice and contractual
For legal
matters for
advice.
port development.
Contract.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome back. Can I get a motion to come out of executive session, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. There is no action being taken. Thank you. Good night. Have a great 2020.